All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to deconstruct the surprisingly complex rules that protect all of our information online. We're pulling back the curtain on something called a cloud security policy, and we'll see how it's basically the blueprint for a company's digital fortress. But let me just start with a question for you. When you're online, who's actually guarding your data? I mean, really think about it. Every time you share a photo, send an email, save a document, you're basically handing it over and trusting someone to keep it safe. But who is that someone? Well, that someone is usually a company using the cloud. And, the cloud isn't some magical, fluffy thing up in the sky. It's a huge, incredibly powerful digital world where so much of our lives, our work, our memories, our private conversations, all of it lives there. And that makes its security just absolutely critical. To protect that world, any company that knows what it's doing starts with a master plan, something like this. A cloud security policy. Now, I know it looks a little dry, a little corporate, but I want you to think of it as the architectural blueprint for a digital fortress, one that's designed from the ground up to protect your data. Okay, so every great fortress needs a rock-solid foundation, right? So let's start there. What exactly is this security blueprint for, and, what ground does it actually cover? The whole point of this plan, its entire purpose, is to protect three core principles. It's something known in the industry as the CIA triad. First is confidentiality, which just means keeping secrets secret. Then there's integrity, making sure the data is accurate and hasn't been messed with. And finally, availability, which is just what it sounds like, making sure you can get to your data when you need it. These three pillars, they are the absolute bedrock of the whole strategy. And this blueprint isn't just for, one little corner of the digital world. The policy scope is crystal clear. It has to cover the entire property. Every single type of cloud service that a company uses falls under this plan. So what does that digital property look like? Well, the policy breaks it down into three main levels. You've got IaaS, or infrastructure as a service. Think of this as the raw land and the foundation. Then there's PaaS, platform as a service. That's kind of like the workshop and all the tools you need to build things. And finally, you have SaaS, software as a service. These are the finished buildings you actually use, things like your email or those collaboration tools at work. Now, of course, the company building the fortress doesn't own the land itself. That's owned by what's called a cloud service provider, or CSP. We're talking about the big players here: Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud. In our fortress metaphor, they're the ones providing the land and all the heavy machinery. And this leads us to one of the most important ideas in this entire policy: the shared responsibility model. It's a really critical agreement. See, the cloud provider, the CSP, is responsible for securing the cloud itself. That's the land in our metaphor. But the company using it, they're responsible for securing everything they build in the cloud. In other words, their fortress. It's a true partnership. So we've got the plans, we've got the land, but a blueprint is pretty useless without a skilled construction crew to actually build and protect this fortress, right? This policy document lays out exactly who's on that crew. It's like a roster. The Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO, they're the chief architect of the whole project. The Cloud Security Architect, that's the lead designer, the one focused on all the specifics. Then you've got your IT ops and cloud engineers. These are the master builders, actually putting it all together. And finally, you have data owners. I like to think of them as the treasury guards, responsible for protecting the most valuable stuff inside. Okay, now we know who's on the crew, so let's get to the really fun part: the high-tech security systems they're installing to defend this fortress. These are the actual technical rules laid out in the policy. So the very first, most basic system is all about controlling who gets in and what they're allowed to do. Let's just call it the system of keys, locks, and ID scanners for the whole fortress. In the policy, this is officially called Cloud Access Management. First, every single user gets a unique verifiable key. That's called authentication. Next, those keys only open the specific doors they're supposed to. That's authorization. The policy also demands something called the least privilege principle, which is a fancy way of saying nobody gets a master key they don't absolutely need for their job. And just like in a real high-security building, every single entry and exit is logged. But what happens once someone's inside? How do we protect the most valuable assets, the crown jewels? Well, for that, we need a second system, the unbreakable vault. The policy calls this cloud data security, and it means your data, the crown jewels, is protected in a few different ways.
First, all the data is scrambled or encrypted while it's just sitting there in storage. That's known as encryption at rest. It's also scrambled while it's moving from one place to another. That's encryption in transit. And really importantly, data gets classified based on how important it is. That way, the company knows if it's protecting a simple public notice or actual state secrets.
So what if someone tries to break in anyway? Or what if an insider tries to do something they shouldn't? That's where our third and final system comes into play, the 24/7 surveillance system.
This part of the policy is all about logging, monitoring, and incident detection. Just think of logs as security cameras that record every single thing that happens. All that footage then gets fed into an intelligent analysis system. It's called a SIM that's constantly looking for anything weird or suspicious. The very instant a potential threat is spotted, an alarm goes off, and the security team can jump on it immediately. So we've talked about the foundation, the crew, and all these high-tech defenses. But why does this dense, corporate-looking blueprint actually matter to you personally? Well, it's because this policy isn't just some internal document for protecting a company. It's actually a company's promise. It's their documented commitment to you that they are taking the job of guarding your data seriously. What this all boils down to is that a strong blueprint like this ensures that the apps you use every single day are designed from the ground up with your safety in mind. See, good security isn't just an add-on or an afterthought. It's a deliberate, core part of the design, and it's all thanks to this master plan. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. We now know that every great digital fortress is built on a detailed blueprint, just like the one we've walked through. So the real question we should all be asking is, are the companies we trust actually following their own plans?